there first. Oh, yes. I just want to make sure this thing doesn't go out. Let me just, yeah.
Hello, it's 12 o'clock, and so it's time we started the session. I'm your room steward for this session, or facilitator. I've got a crib sheet in front of me, so I should just consult that. Step 1, call the room to order. Order! Encourage any stragglers at the door. Come in! Sit down. Good. Introduce yourself to the room. Hello, I'm Matthew. I'm Matthew Ellison, and I'm the facilitator. And I'm here to introduce a session by Karen Mardahl. I'm delighted to do so because I'm a great admirer of Karen, both as a professional technical communicator within our industry, but also as a conference speaker and presenter. And Karen actually presented a very similar session to this at the UA Europe conference in June in Krakow in Poland, and unfortunately I wasn't able to see the session. I had to be in another room, so I was delighted when I saw that I've got the opportunity to do so today, and I'm going to hand over to Karen right now.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, this is about getting things done, so we'll just get down to work and get things done. And I put the hashtag up just to remind you. I hope you're all tweeting TCUK14. And if you want to, I was creative, as some speakers are, and they make their own personalized hashtags, TCUK14, GTD. And this is a very famous acronym for getting things done. Google it, you'll find tons of stuff. So, this is a personal case study for information or inspiration. And your mileage will vary. And that's sort of the point of it. See, I've got the backstory to tell you, the background for this talk. And I have to put in a little plug. The Wikimedia Commons has wonderful pictures that are under Creative Commons, and there's a wonderful resource for all your slide pictures. You don't have to worry about copyright and all that. So I think this came from Budapest or someplace. Wonderful picture of what some of us actually face in our daily job. This is not from my workplace. But the background for my talk is how I almost lost it. One day last year, my colleague turned to me and said, "So, this is the status for my projects. What is the status for your projects?" I sort of looked at him for a moment and I thought, I'm newish at this job. I joined October the year before, new tool, new domain, new processes, new team. I'd gone from being a lone writer to being in a team of people. Whole new way of writing. I mean, I'd been doing chunking for years as a lone writer, but I hadn't had a real topic-based authoring thing, and they had that. And just everything was new. And I was losing it, and I couldn't answer him. I just snapped at him. I don't know. And I felt like, here I am, 55 at the time, 55 years old. He wasn't even 30. And he just was cool. He had everything under control, and there I was. I didn't know the status. If my boss had walked in, would he fire me? Because that's what you think when everything new. Well, you can't answer it, you're not competent. Out of here, kind of thing. And then I turned to him and felt, okay, this is a real major failure kind of thing, and can you help? And that's a really hard thing. I think those of you who've tried it know, and there's the pride, and again, experienced technical communicator, not going to ask this whippersnapper for help, but I did. And so the rest is kind of history. That's why I'm standing here today. And that's why your mileage will vary, because he taught me things which I took and tried, cast away, tried something else, adapted. It'll all be different. And that's where I ran into the dilemma when I wanted to talk about this, because I was keen on this. Do I do the high-level philosophy? Because I follow Getting Things Done as presented by David Allen, not the comedian Dave Allen, but David Allen. The high-level philosophy, the principles, the idea, the concepts, or do I give you hands-on practical stuff? And then I got worried about, a confidentiality or whatever, how can I show you what I'm doing because it shows my work, and that's embarrassing, private, or whatever. And so I've learned a lot from Krakow, because people do need the principles, and I think that is what you really have to do. You have to work. I'm really sorry if you thought there were quick answers. I might as well leave now because there's a lot of work involved. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. High level and a little bit of practical stuff to get you started, to get you inspired. And fear not, there will be some takeaways. 3 mystery prizes to be revealed as we go along. And note, free. They are all free. And I want to make one thing clear before I get started. A project versus an action. It's because of the terminology in the thing. You think, I've got this one project to do. You don't have one project because a project is actually a set of actions. And you're going to need to remember that and not to freak out. So we'll get back to that, but just want to make that clear in case it wasn't for anybody. So, the getting things done workflow steps. They're basically 5 principles. And these slides will all be available, of course, afterwards. So you can look at them. You can doodle them if you want to. These are the five ideas. You're going to be capturing, collecting, gathering, whatever you want to say, getting your information, or it's going to be getting you. It's going to be coming to you. Clarify, processing, organizing, reviewing, and then doing. Seem all pretty much straightforward. Well, the getting things done organization developed by David Allen, this huge website, podcast, blogs, and all that, they've put together a diagram, which is actually quite complex. We're talking in our technical communication minimalism type phrase. And I don't know if you can see it. It's just to show that once there used to be a little diagram. And that's what I had when I originally set out to do all this. And then I discovered the fancy one. And I've actually printed that on an A3 size paper just to read it or to get it. It's actually not bad to see up here, the clarity of the things, but you do need to have it blown up, and it seems kind of overwhelming. But just to briefly say the points I had, this is where you're capturing. Life's random inputs. That's what's coming to you. It's the phone call, it's the email, it's the person stopping by your desk. Hey, I have this problem, can you help me out with this right now? So that'll be all the top stuff. That's your first step. Then the processing is basically, what is it? What do I have to do with? This person coming to me freaking out, is it something I have to freak out about? Let me listen to him. Let me ask the questions. Let me figure out what this is all about. And then organizing. A key step here is it actionable? I mean, hey, let's go to lunch. Okay, that's actionable. Let's do it. You get up and go away right now. Or is it something, we need to have a meeting and I need you to prepare a presentation for this meeting kind of thing? Okay, I can't act on it right now. I need to figure out, is it reference? Is it some resource I've gotten, or is it something I have to work on? Is it something I have to throw away? Hey, that's not me. You need to speak to the guy down the hall kind of thing. So there's various things you work on, what to do. And one of the big tenets of getting things done is, can you do it in under 2 minutes? Then you just do it. It's kind of like you're sitting at home and you're getting your bills, because this also works for your private life. You get those bills still coming in by paper, and you have it, and it's the kind of thing you have to file away because, tax authorities want to see it. Don't just leave it on your desk and think, oh, I'll get to that later. Punch a few holes in it, put it in your binder, get it out of the way, because you can do that in under 2 minutes. And then you don't have that stack of, continually growing crap on your desk that then threatens you, and you come in and you can't relax at your desk because you've got all that pile. And a lot of it is this tiny stuff. Get it out of the way, gets it off your desk. And there's a reviewing and doing process. I'm coming back to these details later. And that's what this diagram is all about. It really requires study. And as I said, I'm sorry, there is work to do. You need to think about it. And what I didn't include in Krakow was some of the tools that I use. And so I'm going to show you a few examples as we go along. I don't have any slide examples of Evernote and things. I do have them on my computer, so if anybody got curious, I could show you afterwards. And they're private and still kind of messy, so I didn't really want to make a slide about them. But Evernote is my killer app. I've had that. I'm an early adopter of that tool because I use Google Notebook, and when it died, I was in the panic crowd that said, what then? And Evernote really pressed it, and I came out and I joined that. OneNote I'd heard about for, actually I can count, 7 years. People said, oh my God, it's marvelous, you've got to try it. And I thought, I don't get it, I don't like it, I don't want it. And then last year we were doing a pilot program for Office 2013, and we were just rolling out and upgrading and all that. And so I said, I'll volunteer for that. And I saw OneNote was in there, and I thought, okay, what the heck, it's here. Give it a try. I was hooked in one day. And I thought, why did it take me 7 years to work this out? And that's kind of a clue to you guys that this is a long path, and it's iterative, and it takes time, because you have your habits, and you've got to incorporate new habits, maybe kick out some old ones. It takes time. And Things, Windows users, just close your ears. Things is for the Mac. It's quite amazing. And what actually tipped me over was a person I follow on Twitter who's bedridden down in Australia. And being bedridden, also, she has chronic fatigue syndrome and all that, and it affects her cognitive load. She's a brilliant person and all that, but when you're racked by pain and other things. And the interface is very nice, very easy to get at, very comfortable to use. So somebody who's racked with cognitive load issues can handle it. And I think we can all nod at that. I mean, we're not exactly bedridden, but I think we encounter cognitive load quite a bit of times. So I just want to show you a few examples. I mentioned Evernote, OneNote, and Things, but there's also the stuff you have at hand, your mail. So this is a very blurred example of my Outlook, and I use color coding and categories and rules. These are very simple things that you have. This is stuff you can get started with. And I have used some of this in the past, got out of the habit of it, and I've gone back into it because of my colleague. This is one of the first things he showed. So I can see, if I'm in a hurry and I knew there was something, I can see by the color coding an email that is just to me, which means I'm the only one in the world that can react to it. It might be a private joke, it might be work to do, but the point is, it is me, so I can't depend on anybody else to look at it. Or I've sorted, I'm CC. Oh, then it's not my problem. And this is one of the things I had in the program. I said, whose responsibility? If you're not in the to thing, if you're not the primary person, and you've got a lot to do, then relax. Don't worry about the stuff that you're CC'd on. Again, that's somebody else, and they'll give a shout, I'm sure, if they want you to help out. So color coding, rules, and categories, they're things that are explained in the Outlook online help, and we can talk about it if you're really curious. They're really quite helpful, and I know Gmail has some of these things, and I know people have talked about some open source tools that have certain features like that. So these are things to look at. What can your mail program do? Because we're at the top category. We're at the collecting, gathering, and processing stage. This stuff, you don't know you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs, nothing to do, and this stuff comes pouring in. You don't know what it's going to be. So can you use your mailbox as the first point of contact to help you get things under control? And that way, focus on what do I need to do first, or second, or not at all, deferring, all that kind of thing. That's because we're bombarded by all sorts of things. And of course, being a tech comms conference, I had to use something with the Nuremberg funnel in it. But it's like somebody is stuffing this into our head, and we're this little fat goose that's just getting, we're going to explode one day, simply because it's just stuffing into our heads. And this is where a lot of us suffer. And we need to turn the picture around and empty that stuff from our heads and get it into some kind of system. I say here, a computer, you can have something, a calendar, clock, your stacks of paper or whatever, but electronic stacks or whatever. And this is all closing your loops. Closing your loops is one of the free, remember the free thing? One of your free giveaways or takeaways from this thing. Closing your loops is a concept that David Allen explains is you're sitting there fretting, I need to plan the TC UK 15 conference. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But the thing is, why worry about the conference that's happening next year when you have, there's some certain first steps you need to take. But the thing is, we all sit there, we worry about the project we have, we worry about the meeting, and they run around like these, the old tape loop things in our head. We lie sleepless at night, we're fretting about these kinds of things, and if you're using some of these steps, closing the loops, that gives you the peace of mind. Because he says a lot of the executives, he has a lot of, I'm talking to executive type tone in his book, so that kind of makes you feel good, and you're like, I'm an executive. But there's certain things of when you get information, how can you close it, how can you deal with it so it doesn't nag you? I've got to remember, I've got to remember, I've got to remember. No, you make your systems work for you, you make your tools work for you. So I had an example with a little free tip in it. In my Outlook, I'm the head of the style guide group at my office, and so people say, oh, that's something we ought to bring up at the style guide meeting. Fine, I get that mail. I send it instantly to OneNote, where I have all the things just thrown in there in one particular spot, and then when I'm ready to make the agenda, I have everything in there. I don't have to go through my Outlook and wade through tons of mails to figure out, oh, I know somebody sent me something, what was it? No, because I've done it instantly. It's actionable, it's under 2 minutes. I don't have to deal with that, we have a meeting, we better discuss it. All I have to do is put it on my to-do for the preparing the agenda list. So I do that, and this was just a conversation, but the point is, I can't use my cursor. Up there, the mail was originally called Process Library, but I added hashtag style guide, hashtag wiki, hashtag media wiki. And this is in the editing, this is in the subject line. You can edit those. That is an oh my God, aha experience for any Outlook user. You can simply write whatever you want. It's your taxonomy, or technically speaking, a folksonomy. Do it, because it helps improve the search capabilities of Outlook, which is really, really powerful. And Gmail would have the same thing. In Gmail, it would be like the label thing. It's fantastic, because the words that are relevant to you might not be mentioned at all in that mail. So if you think, oh, that's that mail about the media wiki we need to work on, and if it's not mentioned, you're not going to get this mail. But I know what the point of it is, because when I read it, I realized, oh, that's that media wiki thing. Put it up there. That helps me, because I'm the one that needs to find it, because it is on my desk, and I do have a responsibility. So I have to take some kind of action that can help me do my job that way. So adding hashtags is fantastic. And by sending it to OneNote, I mentioned, because I have the integrated Office thingy with OneNote. OneNote comes for free in 2013, but it's separate for the other older versions. All I do is click a button up at the top that's circled, OneNote, and then a thing pops up, and I can go in and I can choose the exact notebook or the section in the notebook that I want to put it in. And that's it. That's all I have to do, and that takes seconds. Something for OneNote. Send to OneNote, choose my spot, click next, and that is it. I'm over and done with. I've closed my loop. I don't have to worry about it, because I will be getting back to the what's on the agenda thing later on. And then another example where I've thrown a mail, as I just showed you, I've thrown it into a section of a notebook, which I have several different notebooks all listed in this column, and then this particular notebook, these are the various areas I have in there. And I got feedback on a manual, and the person had very nicely put it out, page 10 and 11, page this and that, blah, 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 got all the feedback. And I could then add a tag there's various symbol tags in there, and I made a to-do thing, which is just a checkbox. And I could go through systematically when I was doing my updates and check it off when I'd done it. And then I could see, oh, I had feedback from this person. Have I gone through? Okay, no, I got a little bit sloppy, so there's a superfluous one here. But I have some others farther down that I haven't done, and then for fun, while I was doing it, I happened to highlight something, because you can also use highlighter tools. And that was a help to me. So I was processing the feedback. How do I work on it? Maybe I need to get back to her and say, I don't get your point. So it's turning a message into a checklist. This is just merely the matter of putting your mail into OneNote or into Evernote or whatever tool you might want to use. And then last tip about right here is connecting the dots in meetings with OneNote and Outlook. This is fantastic, which I just learned recently. You have your meeting agendas in your calendar, and I now no longer have a paper notebook. I keep all my notes from meeting, and these are my personal notes, not the official notes, but just anything I want to keep tabs on. And up on the top of the page, when I'm in OneNote, where I have all my meeting notes for this particular group, there's a little thing that says meeting details. I click on that, and it shows me all the meetings for that day. I find the one I want, and it just plops in everything from that email. So if that person made a fancy agenda or whatever, I get all that. And I can link to the original mail, I can see the message, and I can see the participants. So I can also open up, was Mary at that meeting or not? I can see it right there. So these are some ways to get the stuff out there, to deal with it quickly, and to process it in an efficient way. And closing the loops brings us directly to our next takeaway, and that's next actions. Because, as I said, you're fretting about TCUK 15 or your next manual or whatever. Why worry about, is there going to be water on the table, when actually the first step you need to do is something much more simple. Maybe it's finding the hotel or deciding what part of the country we're going to be in. or probably finding the part of the country you're going to be in before you find the hotel. But that kind of thing, breaking it down. So when I set out the feedback, I didn't have to worry about that manual update at all because it was on her table. She had to give me the feedback. I could go off and do some other work. I didn't have to fret about it. I had a deadline on the thing. And that would be sort of out of the scope of the discussion. If I didn't get the feedback in time and I had a deadline, escalate to some manager, confront her, or whatever. That's the kind of thing. But the point is, I didn't have to worry about that one particular task because I'd done it. Then I'm awaiting something. But it's getting the next task done. That's all that counts. And a tricky thing that I did not understand right away, in fact, I even said so in Krakow, but I finally understood it. Make action lists, not context lists. And this is a real habit changer for me because I think I'm working on manual A, I'll have everything related to that in the manual A pile, and everything to manual B related here, et cetera, whatever I'm doing. But the action list, the idea is that you have all your to-dos in one place, whether it's related to manual A, manual B, shopping list, whatever, you have all your next things you can do. Because if you finish something and you think, okay, what can I do next? Then you have everything lined up. Here are your things you can do next. Now, David Allen gives a sort of old-fashioned, but maybe a clearer example. He talks about people you need to phone. Because again, he's talking to all the executives. I need to talk to Bob about the merger. I need to talk to Mary about this, that, and the other thing. So he has them listed down. He doesn't have Bob's number and the need to call him listed under the pile of stuff about the merger or Mary about something else. He has them in the phone call list because that's when you use your time, like 5 minutes waiting for a bus or whatever. Or you're sitting at home doing laundry and you have a bit of spare time and you actually want to do your work. These are things you can do. So it's the actions. These are people I need to call. These are things I need to do of a certain type of thing. So it's making action lists, not context lists. Might be a bit tricky. The book goes into more detail, and I give the name of the book and all that at the end. And another thing you don't put on your to-do list are your actual specific calendar items. And you don't put to-do lists on your calendar. It's only for the very specific stuff. Because in the old days, I used to put all my to-dos on the calendar. So like today's Monday, I want to do this. And then I got maybe 3 out of 20 things done. So I then had to drag the 17 over to the next page. Well, I wasn't going to rewrite them. That meant I flipped back in the old paper calendars. I would flip back to them. And suddenly, come September, I'd have to-dos that were undone strewn throughout my calendar. I did not have an overview. I would get stressed because I felt like, I know something's not done. And that becomes really, really stressful. Horrible, in fact. So, just to recap visually really quick, you're getting your life's random input, whatever it might be, and you have to think about what this is. And that is the part where, that helps you to close your loops because you're not going to fret about it. You're going to look at it very soberly and think, what is this? Try to plan it out and then start looking at it. Is it actionable? Should I file it away? You might have gotten a reference document, that background material that you should read in order to document whatever you're documenting. Fine, put that aside in the thing. You don't have to read this document right this moment. Put that in a to read and review kind of pile. That's the kind of thing, that's the kind of way you can deal with it. And of all these picture icon thingies, what you really have to look at is you're going to need to keep track of your projects. And that sort of, I think, might be a given. Project support materials. That's, again, the sort of breaking out the actions and the context. If you have support material, like a background article on something, then keep it in a place for itself. Don't let it clutter up your projects because it becomes sort of unnecessary noise. Your calendar actions and info, dentist appointment, meeting with the boss, that sort of thing. And your next action. David Allen actually says, if everybody just did their next action, got this takeaway from his idea of getting things done, he said the business world will be a much better place. Because there's a lot of people that are just standing around thinking, we've got this project going. But aren't you working on it? You should be doing something. And, I have to do something? You're all, instead of just looking at, what can I do? Okay, I can't do anything right now. I've delegated it over there, so I can legitimately stand back and wait. You need to run around and you need to contact somebody. And then, so there are we all have specific tasks to do, and that's where you have to watch out you don't get caught up in worrying about what he's doing. Just worry about what you can do and deal with them that way. So it's an interesting concept. And then again, the waiting for list helps you with those things that, hey, I gave it to Matthew, it's on his table, I'll get back to him on Friday, and we'll talk about how far he's gotten and all that kind of thing. And the ideas. Hopefully you're all still having ideas and dreams. And those go on your someday list, or also known as someday maybe. And this is where you need to capture those things, these ideas, these brainstorms you have, because don't lose them. You might not have time today, or tomorrow, or next month, but keep them, because there's a freebie that's coming up again soon. You go back and you review these things, and you need those, and they might have become obsolete in the meantime, or they might become relevant, or they might have suddenly bubbled up to the surface. Now you have to do them. So, and finally, the reference material, and that should be anything that supports whatever your tasks are. That should be pretty straightforward. So again, I just showed a quick to-do list, really simple. Paper and pen is also doable. I just happen to keep it in one place, and there's not really much more to it. Just keep them there, keep them in front of your face. This is a part of my morning routine where check my mail, check Twitter, check all those things, and I go in and look at my to-do. If I have something that is really, really burning, I might put it up at the top, flaming red letters, might put a post-it on my, like the first thing I do, even before I open email, I'll do something. Otherwise, it's just straightforward. It's just in there, skim, skim. Oh, that's the thing I need to do. Fine. And that brings us to the third and final freebie, reviews. Now, because this is a technical communication audience, I'm not talking about you're reviewing a manual. I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about you reviewing what you have to do. So it's keeping track of all your to-dos, your next actions, all that kind of thing, or, oh, I'm waiting. I've been waiting now for 2 weeks for that review. I need to catch up with somebody. So these are the kind of reviews you need to do, and it's hard. I still do not have a proper pattern of it, but I know that when I'm in the flow of doing the reviews, I feel more relieved. I've gotten that thing kind of cleaned up, and I feel things are a little bit tidier in the house. And I mean my virtual house of technical communication. So reviewing what you have keeps you on top of things, and that also helps you close the loops, because if you're starting to think, oh my God, I have that thing, oh, but no, the next action, waiting for all that, it's under control, I have it written down, I don't have to worry, Zen. And that brings us to mind like water, which is the martial arts expression he uses, and it's also probably better known to a lot of you as flow, which some guy with a lot of consonants in his last name invented, or coined. The mind like water is, when you're in that flow, you can get things done, because you're not burdened by all your open loops, or what am I supposed to be doing, but you're more relaxed. And this is where you get your creativity, because your mind is relaxed, you can get those things to bubble up. And this actually happened to me recently with, we had a project, we have a lot of legacy manuals, and we need to convert them all to Flair and topic-based authoring, and I'm sure you can imagine how awful this all is. And we looked at it, me and my colleague, we're in a big team, but we just have to worry about our domain, and we thought, hey, why don't we do a sprint? The two of us one day, lock in a room, let's just tackle one of these things and see what the workflow is. Can we use this as a method for getting through all our stuff? So we did. We booked a room. We blocked our calendars. It was wonderful. It was fantastic. And we were so creative. We got our actual work done. Because we had to look at the manual. We cut and pasted almost and rearranged, was this a concept or a task? We felt so creative. And we got some insights that we had because we were in a kind of a Zen zone with this flowing thing. So it is marvelous. I can highly recommend it. It's a legal high. So. And then I just want to run very, very briefly through something called a tickler file. I don't know if you remember in olden days, there used to be these books, kind of like you have the card file thing, but you'd have books and they had 1 to 31, and then like accountants would have them. Oh, a bill to be paid on the 15th, today's the 1st. Open up to number 15, put the invoice in there, close it, and when you came to the 15th, the accountant would open it up and pay the bill. So these are reminders, anything you need to remember on a certain day kind of thing. It's also known as 43 folders in some circles. So I've played around a little bit with it. He talks about it, and I tried it in OneNote where I have a notebook called 43 folders, and January to December are set up, and then I have 1 through 31 for the number of days. I know February and September don't have all 31 days, but I just have the pages already. So if I had something to put on the date to remind me, and you have to then check these every single day, you can use that. So I have, in October, we're having this kickoff, and I put that on the page October to remind me when I come to the 1st of October, so what's happening this month that I should know? And it's not really a calendar thing, because I don't really have a to-do. I just want to remind me this is happening. It could be like you know that the sales team is going off to do some kind of launch in Monaco. You just want to be aware of that. It's those kinds of things, or whatever, or maybe a bill to be paid. And we also do personal objectives for our year. And in January, February, we go through that, and then we wrap up the year in December. So for me personally, because it's my system, I put it in December. And I know that my objectives are in December because that's how the year works. And so I have them in there as a reminder. What were my objectives? Or am I keeping to my objectives? Have I forgotten them? So it's just ticklers, 43 folder. That's another method. He goes into detail in his book. I just wanted to introduce it briefly. And then I have to say, this is just a methodology. This is not doing your work. You still have to do the work. And we had the 5 workflow. I'm really sorry, David. Sorry. We have the 5 workflow steps, and it mentioned, collecting and gathering and organizing. The last one was doing. I mean, after you've sorted all these things out, you still have to go and do something. So, but the thing is, it might not do your work for you, but it helps you master your time and become more efficient. And that, I think, is really, really crucial. And I think it also helps a lot with the focusing, because when you're in that set where you're freaking out, everything is, the open loops are going through your head and all that, boy, it's so nice to look at a squirrel. Oh, it is so great, to just go off on these tangents. But it keeps you, you can go and look at a squirrel, because maybe you'll get into that flow where you have the time to look at a squirrel and you feel like, this is my someday maybe. I want to spend all day looking at squirrels. Fine. But you get that better focus on your things. So, in summary, the takeaways are closing the loops, next actions, and these really, really overlap quite a bit. They go hand in hand. And then the reviews. You're making all your lists, keeping track of them. You've got to monitor them regularly. You've got to see how your little babies are doing. Keep an eye on them. So, without further ado, questions, much contact. These are ways to get in touch with me. I'm a humble technical writer at a financial investment company, and I think that's one place that definitely needs a lot of keeping on top of things, the level of complexity of information. And for anyone who thinks it's a fancy hoodoo whatever thing, there's actually some people that have done some research. It's the science behind stress-free productivity, and it's really, really quite interesting. It shows how often you don't need to plan a lot of things, because like we're talking about converting all these legacy things. We had the one next action. We didn't have to worry about it. But they're saying sometimes the next action step you take actually gives rise to the following action. So you don't have to sit there and plan from A to Z. You don't have to worry about results right away. Just know what your next action is. Have an idea of what the thing is about. But if you already block in, these are the results, you might block yourself out of something that you really, really need. So this is some of the scientific stuff. I have the link. All this kind of stuff will be shared with you afterwards. So it's quite interesting to read that scientists are looking at it and say it works with how we are, how our interactions are. So with all that, any questions? Yes?
I'm a failed getting things done. And the thing that I found difficult about methodology was the gathering and organising, because that overwhelmed me and made me want to cry. Do you have any views on, given the fact that you're not starting from a kind of blank sheet of paper with nothing, do you have any insights into how to make that gathering process manageable?
I had a to-do that I made for myself, and that was, I didn't want to get to inbox 0, but I wanted to clean up my Outlook, because I figured, I thought I dropped the ball on a few things, and I had. But I went back to the 1st of August, which was a cutting date for certain things in our company, and I have cleaned up my mailbox between the 1st of August 2013 and today. I'm not fully clean. I still have May and June from this year to clean up, but I've reduced it, and I've trashed a lot of stuff that was just not necessary. I had crap in there that was cluttering the mind and vision. But then I also got things, tips and tricks. I found one case where I'd asked 3 times, what's the meaning of this? And over a period of several months. But I didn't know that I had already asked it, so I'd repeated it. So I then have a place, useful information to know. So I found these things, I could put them into practical information. Maybe it was something for the style guide, whatever. And I got structured. And it's taken me from January till now to do that. And it's just like, every now and then, I'm really bored, I'm tired of doing this editing. I'll go and, check out maybe 50 mails and sort them, that sort of thing. So I simply did it. It was a cleanup job. It was my own extra review kind of thing to get on top of it. And even though I'm talking about electronic stuff, I still am mad about paper and pencils and stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with you as things come in. And my colleague does this. I mean, he will get things, he'll jot them down. He has a little block of paper and all that kind of stuff, and he'll just write them down because he's in the middle of something and somebody just says, oh, you've got to call John and talk about this. Call John, fine. But then he has them in one little corner of his desk, and then he processes them. So at the end of the day, the paper slips are gone, but everything is put into place. And that's one way to tackle, like you say, the existing stuff. Because yes, I have read Getting Things Done several years ago. I got to chapter 2, and then I bombed. I just thought, this is too much. And I was listening to it on an audiobook, which I do not recommend, because you need to sit and do things while you're reading it. You need to practice what he's preaching. So I've gone back actually and gotten the Kindle book just to have a balance of those things. But it was seeing somebody doing it. I think that's what really helped me, because I think there's a lot of tools that we're told, oh, this is fabulous, but if you can't relate it to your life, it's really, really hard, and you just move on, and maybe there's a solution. So if you find somebody, you can come and talk to me afterwards, I can show you some things. It really has helped me personally to meet with somebody who does that and then to share some tips. And I happen to know somebody at Microsoft in Denmark, and she's a mad fanatic about OneNote. So we're going to have coffee one day and share each other's tricks. And I'm getting more and more tricks each time I do that. And it's fabulous. And I feel really, whoa, oh, that's cool. And I like cool and neat and that sort of thing. So that'd be one way to get going. But be patient, one step at a time. Yeah, I think this woman here first. Okay. Go ahead, Neil.
One of my favourite ways of closing the loop doesn't work very well, and I'd be interested in some tips. Sometimes I get emails and I respond to them, expecting that the person will get the email and reply, and then they will close my loop for me, but they don't necessarily reply, in which case the loop is left unclosed. Do you find flagging things for follow-up things, or you CC yourself in, or how do you...
So my colleague, he CCs himself on a lot of these things, and then anything where he has sent the mail, it's the rule in Outlook. I have sent the mail and I've CC'd myself, it goes into my waiting for folder. So he has that. And then he checks that, again, the review, this is where it comes in. Very, very handy, very necessary. He then checks that every morning. Do I have anything I need to follow up on? Okay, he hasn't replied to me, but it's not urgent because I actually have something else that's urgent to do today. I'll check tomorrow. That kind of thing, because you evaluate it each time you go through it. But that may be one thing. And otherwise, I've just sent out reminders, and I've taken the entire original correspondence and say, hey, I wrote to you there, do you have an answer? And that has started to work. I think it's, oh, sorry, I really forgot about that, and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I've got some kind of power when I'm doing that. I'm like, I know what's going on, do you? Kind of thing, and that's also kind of cool. Sure.
You don't talk very much about context in the sense that David Allen talks about them. Somebody who's never managed to use them successfully.
Context?
Contexts, as in Dave Allen says you should tag things with context. So that's a call, that's something to do with the computer, that's an errand. I've never found a sensible way of dealing with that works for me, and I wondered, you didn't mention it at all, I wondered if you just sort of decided that they didn't work before you tried it and failed.
I'd say my tagging comes a little bit close to that. It's not really the context things, and I don't have that with like a telephone list or well, in private life, a shopping list is a classic example. But I am starting to do that more in private life because I am thinking oh, there's like especially if it's a specialist shop that has shorter opening hours. You know, supermarkets are open very late, but your specialist shop, you need to get shoes repaired or something like that. And I've started to get a lot better at that, where I do have one shopping list in Evernote, which I can also get on my iPhone. All these things have multiple device applications. And so I use that, and that helps. So then when in town, I'm thinking, okay, I'm in town to do this. Is there anything else I need to do? And that has improved a little bit. So I've suddenly done things that give myself more work. Suddenly I've gone and bought fabric to sew for the first time in years. Now I have the problem, now I have to sew it when I get home. But I've got the fabric, you know. So it's slowly.
Providing you said it's improved a bit, what have you done to improve it?
Well, the fact that I sit there and set these things up, I think I'm more conscious of it. It's kind of like, they say that electronic writing is not as good as physical writing because there's something going on with your brain and how you're really embracing it. But the electronic stuff, you don't have that much contact to it. But I think I'm still, by sitting working at it and by doing your reviews, you're in there every single day and that kind of thing. So I think it is practice and it takes time. And I mean, I started this journey. Matthew asked me if I wanted to speak in Poland, and I said yes, and I started looking because I thought this was what was most interesting. And then, but since June and now, I've improved even more and changed even more. So it's an ongoing process, and it takes time, and that's really hard to handle sometimes. I think, damn. But I'm more prepared if my colleague asks for information.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for in this session. I'm sorry. But I'd like you to join me in thanking Karen very much.
And in closing, I'm really sorry that I gave you work because, I mean, I'm telling you here are some free things, but you really have to go home and work. And so I thought I should give you a no strings attached freebie. I've got some Danish candy. There's chocolate truffles with nougat, chocolate with caramel, and I think it's marzipan stuff here. So, yeah, marzipan bars. So help yourself.
And don't forget to fill out Survey Monkey.
Yes, yes.
Haven't had a link through. I've had no links through from Survey Monkey.
You didn't get an email?
It was an email sent.
Shame. I got an email. I did get an email. It wasn't from Survey Monkey. It was from ISTC, but it provided me with a link to Survey Monkey.